Hello and welcome to This Week on Xbox. Did you catch the show? Xbox kicked off 2026 with a new developer direct showcasing some incredible games we can't wait to get our hands on. From legendary franchises like Forza Horizon and Fable to brand new titles, Kiln and Beasts of Reincarnation. Here's a recap. If you didn't know, it's a big year for us here at Xbox. We're kicking off our 25th anniversary year the best way we know how. Developer Direct invited players across the globe to go behind the scenes with developers from Playground Games on 2 exciting upcoming titles. We got an exclusive look at Forza Horizon 6, showcasing the breathtaking landscapes and underground car culture of Japan. It's launching in May and is now available for pre-order. We also got an up-close look at a much-anticipated title, Fable, an immersive open-world action RPG that launches on Xbox later this fall. And that's not all. We traveled to Game Freak in Japan to learn more about Beast of Reincarnation. It's launching this summer, day one, with Game Pass Ultimate. This RPG promises an unforgettable blend of action, strategy, and mystery, and a good dog as your trusty companion. And just when you thought that was it, Kiln enters the arena. It's an online multiplayer pottery party brawler from Double Fine Productions. It launches this spring, so be sure to head over to Double Fine's website and sign up for the beta today. Miss the show? You can watch it right now on YouTube and learn more about all the titles on Xbox Wire. And if that wasn't enough to get you excited, here's a look at what you can play on Xbox this week. Slip through the shadows and unleash explosive chaos with the Redacted Regiment Warbond in Helldivers 2. Gear up for Tactical Thunder, just make sure you've got the base game and some super credits ready to join the fun. 2XKO is bringing fast-paced 2v2 League of Legends brawls to Xbox, and Season 1 is packed with new goodies, including Caitlyn from Arcane, fresh skins, and a snazzy battle pass. Jump in now for exclusive Arcane-themed starter editions and kick off the action with a friend or solo.
Well, look who it is.
Journey to Midgar and experience the legendary adventures of Cloud Strife in Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. This enhanced reimagining of the groundbreaking RPG features stunning visuals, acclaimed storytelling, and a dynamic hybrid battle system that combines real-time action with a robust command-based tactics. Here's a look at what's available with Game Pass. Mio Memories in Orbit has finally arrived to Xbox. Explore an overgrown arc filled with memories, enemies, and powers as you work to save the vessel. Swing, glide, and fight through unique bosses and puzzles while customizing your abilities. Play now with Game Pass Ultimate and PC Game Pass. Resident Evil is now scaring up Game Pass with a wild adventure. Ethan Winters faces off against terrifying monsters in a creepy European town. So grab your flashlight and nerves of steel because every corner is packed with shocking surprises. It's now available with Game Pass Ultimate, Game Pass Premium, and PC Game Pass.
But you're whining. We're almost there.
Step into a surreal post-apocalyptic world as Sam Bridges in Death Stranding Director's Cut, where you deliver hope across a hauntingly beautiful, monster-filled America. Enjoy slick upgrades, epic crossovers, and connect with players worldwide in this unforgettable adventure with Game Pass Ultimate, Game Pass Premium, and PC Game Pass. We see more games in your future. Here's what's coming soon. Create your ultimate Revenant Hunter in Code Vein 2 with tons of customization options. Then, carry your masterpiece into the full game after the demo. Pre-order the Deluxe or Ultimate Edition to score some sweet bonuses and jump into the adventure 3 days early before it launches on January 29th. Prepare for action in Relooted. In this African futuristic heist game, reclaim special artifacts from collectors across the world and bounce as fast as you can before you get caught. Relooted arrives February 10th. Rev your engines. Ride 6 arrives to Xbox February 12th. Pre-order now and get access to the Made in Japan Bikes Pack. And add 2 iconic Japanese bikes to your garage. Plus, with the Deluxe and Ultimate Editions, unlock Italian gems, season passes, and 3 days early access. Brawl your way into Yakuza Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties Demo on Xbox Series X and S for a double dose of classic Yakuza action. Available February 12th. Play as the fabled Yakuza Kiwami Kiro in a modern remake of Yakuza 3 and dive into the all-new Dark Ties adventure starring Yoshitaka Mine. 2 thrilling games, 1 epic demo. The fight for Earth is yours to command in Mechborn. In this wild roguelike deck builder, customize awesome mechs inspired by classic 90s anime and Greek mythology. Take on colossal kaiju and master a clever conveyor belt combat system for non-stop action.
A living weapon, reborn.
Marathon is now available for pre-order. In this new team-based FPS extraction shooter, play as a runner, a mercenary who has traded your human form for a host of enhanced cybernetic abilities. Work together in crews to battle hostile AI security forces and rival runner teams. Ready for an unforgettable ride? Life is Strange Reunion brings Max and Chloe together for the first time in over a decade as they race to unravel the mystery behind a devastating fire. Your choices shape dramatic outcomes as old friends and new faces face life or death stakes, with Max's powers and Chloe's attitude leading the charge. We got a list of updates for you. Let's run through them. Check out the Molten Sands Fortress update in Sea of Thieves, where valuable treasure awaits in the fort's vault. Tee off with Season 5 of PGA Tour 2K25 with a brand new Clubhouse Pass, new quests, and drops in the PGA Tour Superstore. Face the past before it consumes you with Woolhaven, the DLC expansion for Cult of the Lamb. Merlin arrives in Ravenwatch with an extraordinary arsenal at his disposal to fight nightmares and build spells. In The Last Faith, embark on thrilling new adventures in Awakened Ancients with fresh modes, characters, and gear. Rupture, Brawlhalla's newest legend, rockets onto the scene with guitars and awesome skins to celebrate the 10th anniversary. Unleash electrifying, fiery, and unstoppable power with 3 new heroes in the One Piece Pirate Warriors 4 Special Selection Pack. Punch up your Digimon adventure with the all-new Gakuran DLC, unlocking Mega Digivolutions and fresh story content in Digimon Story Time Stranger. My Hero Ultra Rumble brings the action with new hero Fumikage Tokoyame. Bundle up for the Freeze for All event in Rainbow Six Siege X. Race to collect frozen souls and rack up 40 kills in a frosty free-for-all on the snow-packed Arctic Workshop map. Don't miss out. Complete weekly challenges or snag Twitch drops for free skins while the chill lasts. This week with free play days, enjoy Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1, South Park Snow Day, This War of Mine Final Cut, and Cult of the Lamb. Thanks for watching, and have a great weekend.
2026 is the year gaming gets really exciting. These 20 games are why we love this hobby so much. Some you've probably heard about. Others might be completely new discoveries. All of them? Potentially amazing. Let's explore what's coming and what makes each one special. Alright, so get this. A studio from China just released a trailer that got more votes than Sony's biggest games. Wild, right? Tides of Annihilation is what happens when you mix King Arthur Legends with modern-day London. You play as Gwendolyn, and you're the last person alive in a ruined London that's split between our world and a magical nightmare realm called Avalon. Your mission? Find the legendary Holy Grail, save your sister, and battle demon knights. But here's the coolest part. You don't fight alone. You summon ghost versions of the Knights of the Round Table, and each knight has special abilities. It's like collecting powerful warriors, each with their own unique powers. The combat is fast and action-packed like Devil May Cry, not slow and super difficult like Dark Souls. You get 4 different weapons to master, over 30 epic bosses to defeat, and these massive towering knights that you can actually climb on and explore before battling them. It's like Shadow of the Colossus meets legendary British history. The game's built in Unreal Engine 5, which means it looks absolutely stunning. It's coming in 2026 and everyone's talking about it. Will it live up to the hype? We'll have to wait and see. Okay, so the team behind Ghost Runner just said, what if we took everything we're good at and made it even more intense? That's Valor Mortis. You play as William, a British soldier who fought for Napoleon and, well, he died. But then Napoleon brings him back from the dead, because apparently that's possible now. The problem? There's a plague that turned all your fellow soldiers into undead monsters, and now you have to fight through them while wondering how your life got this crazy. It's a first-person Souls-like game, which means it's really challenging. The playtest had over 515,000 player deaths. You've got a sword for slashing, a flintlock pistol for shooting, but ammo is super rare, so use it wisely, and you can learn magical fire abilities. There's blocking, parrying, dodging, all the skills that'll test your reflexes. The game looks like it's set in the 1800s, but feels like a horror movie with creepy abandoned buildings and monsters everywhere. It has Metroidvania-style levels, meaning you'll explore, backtrack, and find new paths as you get stronger. Coming in 2026. If you love challenging combat games with a spooky atmosphere, this could be amazing. Just be ready for a tough adventure. So, NetEase, the company that made Marvel Rivals, decided to create a single-player game. And instead of playing it safe, they went all in with ancient China. You play as a father and his son during the Tang Dynasty, and you need to deliver an important message to the capital city that's 1,000 miles away. Sound simple? Nope. Everything wants to stop you. The game's inspired by God of War, and the combat looks intense and cinematic, with realistic sword fighting and sneaky stealth sections. They actually worked with real historians to scan actual locations along the ancient Silk Road and recreate them in Unreal Engine 5. The environments look incredible. Deserts, ancient cities, crumbling fortresses, all of it. The story is about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, which is really cool. This isn't about some chosen hero with magic powers, it's just a dad and his kid trying to survive while delivering an important message. Basically, the most dangerous postal service ever. It might launch in late 2026. And after Black Myth Wukong showed how amazing Chinese game studios can be, I'm really excited for Blood Message. It could be the next big action-adventure game. Team Ninja said, we've made 2 Nioh games, but what if we made it even bigger? Nioh 3 releases February 6th, 2026. This time you play as Tokugawa Takechio, who's about to become the shogun until his evil brother shows up with an army of demons and ruins everything. Classic sibling rivalry. But with way more battles. Here's the big change. You can now play as either a samurai or a ninja, and they're completely different. Samurai is the classic style with blocking, parrying, and technical combat. Ninja is way more mobile. You're dodging, jumping, creating magic clones, basically being a parkour master while using cool abilities. And you can switch between both styles whenever you want. The game's less linear now with bigger areas to explore, side quests, optional bosses, and you can even play with up to 3 friends online. The story involves time travel, which makes things extra interesting. The demo had some technical hiccups, but the team's working on fixing them. The graphics aren't mind-blowing. Team Ninja focuses on gameplay first, but that's what matters. If you love the first 2 games, you'll probably love this one. Just be ready for a serious challenge. Tarsier Studios made Little Nightmares, which gave players serious chills, and now they said, let's make something even scarier. Reanimal is their new horror game, and it's like Little Nightmares, but with co-op, so you can be scared with a friend. You play as a brother and sister who are orphans, and you need to rescue your orphan friends from a nightmare island filled with monsters. Sounds terrifying, right? The game can be played alone or with online co-op. And here's the awesome part. It has a friend's pass like It Takes Two, meaning only one person needs to buy it, and your friend can play for free. Super generous. The whole game uses a shared camera that keeps both characters on screen at all times, which creates tons of tension. You'll solve puzzles, sneak past monsters, and probably jump out of your seat a lot. Tarsier is known for their creepy art style and disturbing creature designs, and Reanimal looks absolutely spooky. There's a demo available right now if you want to try it. It's coming February 13th, 2026 for $40, which is a great price for a horror co-op experience. If you loved Little Nightmares or It Takes Two, this combines the best of both worlds. Okay, so Capcom looked at Raccoon City and said, you know what? We need to go back there again. Resident Evil 9 releases February 27th, and this time you play as two people. Grace, a scared FBI analyst who's new to fighting zombies, and Leon Kennedy, who's been through so many zombie adventures that he upgraded his knife to a hatchet. Here's something really interesting. These zombies aren't completely mindless. They remember parts of their old lives, so you might see one trying to clean or do their old job, just in a really strange way. Grace plays like classic survival horror, sneaking around carefully, conserving ammo, staying super cautious. Leon's gameplay is pure action. He takes everything from RE4 Remake and lets you block attacks with a hatchet and use really cool combat moves. The game lets you switch between first-person and third-person views whenever you want, which is super neat. You're exploring the ruins of Raccoon City 30 years after the zombie outbreak, and it looks absolutely gorgeous with amazing graphics and ray tracing technology. There's even a special Hamilton watch collaboration and a custom Porsche for Leon. The standard edition costs $70 and the deluxe edition has extra costumes and weapon designs. It's coming to PS5, Xbox Series, PC, and even Switch 2. If you're a Resident Evil fan, you probably already know you want this. The series has been amazing lately, and Requiem looks like it's going to continue that trend. Team Ninja took one of the most famous scary games ever made and said, let's remake it with modern graphics. Fatal Frame 2. Remake launches March 12th, 2026, and the story is really unique. You play as twin sisters Mio and Mayu exploring a mysterious ghost village, and your only weapon is a camera. Yep, a camera. You battle ghosts by taking pictures of them, which sounds unusual until you realize how spooky it is when you have to get close to spirits and capture them through your viewfinder. The remake looks incredible. They rebuilt everything with better graphics, improved lighting, shadows, and atmospheric effects that create an amazing, scary atmosphere. There are new gameplay features like holding your sister's hand to recover health, but if she gets scared, she might fall and you'll need to help her up. You can equip special charms for different bonuses, explore new areas, and there's even a brand new ending they added. The original game from 2003 is considered one of the scariest horror games ever made. Even famous game developers say it's extremely frightening. This remake keeps all that spooky atmosphere, but makes it look better than ever. It costs $40 to $50 depending on which edition you choose. If you like horror games and mysterious adventures, this is definitely worth checking out. Just maybe don't play it late at night with the lights off. Pearl Abyss, the studio behind Black Desert Online, spent years making a single-player fantasy action game, and it looks absolutely amazing. Crimson Desert launches March 19th for $70, and you play as Cliff, leader of a mercenary group called the Greymanes. Your team got ambushed and scattered, so your job is finding the survivors and rebuilding while dealing with a continent that's in total war. This is a full open-world adventure. Deserts, frozen tundras, forests, cities, you can explore everything. You can ride horses, encounter dragons, glide through the air, the whole adventure package. The combat looks absolutely incredible, like if you took The Witcher 3 and cranked up the action. It features combo-based fighting with swords, spears, bows, magic abilities, and you can combine everything together for super powerful attacks. The boss fights look massive, with mechanical dragons and huge monsters that provide epic challenges. There are side quests everywhere, puzzles to solve, different factions to interact with, and you can even go fishing and cooking because sometimes it's nice to take a break from all the action. The game runs on Pearl Abyss's own engine called Black Space, and it looks gorgeous on PS5 Pro. Pre-ordering gets you exclusive gear, including a PlayStation-only armor set. This could be the big fantasy RPG surprise of 2026. It's been in development for a long time. It's almost here, and honestly, it looks amazing. A Korean studio is making what looks like a blend of stealth action and dramatic storytelling, and it's really interesting. Mudong Two Hearts is a stealth action game set in Korea where a terrorist attack happens on an important peace day. You play as two characters, Ji Jung-tae, a special forces soldier, and Gavi, a K-pop idol who gets caught up in this whole situation. Yeah, that's the setup, a soldier and a pop star trying to survive and uncover a conspiracy. The gameplay switches between stealth and action. You can sneak around quietly avoiding detection, or use combat skills when necessary. It's all third-person view, very cinematic, with smooth transitions between cutscenes and gameplay. The developers are using motion capture from actual Korean special forces to make the movements look super realistic. There are no loading screens, everything flows together like a movie. The game's coming in 2026, but no exact date yet. And it'll be on PS5, Xbox, and PC for probably $60 to $70. We don't get many games like this anymore. That serious, story-driven military adventure, but with a Korean perspective. If they nail the story and the stealth mechanics work well, this could be a real hidden gem. It's a completely unique experience. IO Interactive, the amazing team behind Hitman, are making a James Bond game, and they delayed it to make it even better. Originally March 27th, now it's May 27th, 2026. You play as a young 26-year-old Bond who's basically a rookie agent trying to earn his 00 status, and it's completely original, not based on any movies or books, just inspired by the Bond universe. Patrick Gibson plays Bond, Lenny Kravitz is the villain called the Pirate King, and the voice cast is incredible. The gameplay looks like Hitman mixed with Uncharted, third-person action with stealth, combat, gadgets, car chases, the whole spy adventure. You can choose how to handle missions, sneak around quietly, use cool gadgets, or take the action route. The combat is really smooth. Bond can disarm enemies in creative ways and use advanced fighting techniques. There's an Omega Watch and Aston Martin Valhalla that work as special spy gadgets from Q. The game's built on IO's Glacier engine, with new technology for volumetric smoke and lighting that looks stunning. They showed over 30 minutes of gameplay from missions in Slovakia and London, and it looks polished and cinematic. The standard edition is $70, but if you pre-order, you get upgraded to the deluxe edition for free with early access and exclusive outfits. Coming to PS5, Xbox Series, PC, and Switch 2. This is the first major Bond game in over 10 years. And if IO brings even half the creativity they had with Hitman, this could be something special. Don't nod. The studio behind Life is Strange teamed up with the actual European Space Agency to make a realistic sci-fi game about astronauts stranded on a frozen alien planet. Aphelion is coming in 2026, and it gives serious space exploration adventure vibes. By the year 2060, Earth is in trouble, and humanity's last hope is a 9th planet called Persephone at the edge of the solar system. You play as 2 astronauts, Ariane and Thomas, whose ship crashes, separating them across this ice-covered world. Your goal is simple: survive, find each other, and figure out what happened. You switch between both characters, and they play completely differently. Ariane gets the parkour action, climbing, rappelling, grappling across dangerous terrain like she's doing extreme sports on an alien world. Thomas is more investigative and resourceful, dealing with different challenges and puzzles. The catch? There are hostile creatures on this planet, and you'll need to use stealth to avoid them because fighting isn't always an option. The game focuses on exploration and atmosphere, with that classic don't nod storytelling, where the environment tells you as much as the dialogue. It's built in Unreal Engine 5 and looks absolutely gorgeous. All frozen landscapes and mysterious alien structures. They worked with actual space scientists to make it feel realistic, so expect legitimate space exploration vibes. Coming to PS5, Xbox Series, and PC, probably $60 to $70. If you loved games like Deliver Us Mars or want something that takes space exploration seriously, Aphelion might be perfect for you. Remember when Capcom announced this mysterious sci-fi game back in 2020? Well, it's finally here. Pragmata launches April 24th, 2026. And after 6 years of development, it looks absolutely incredible. You play as Hugh Williams, a soldier who gets stranded on a lunar research station after a massive earthquake hits. He's injured and basically in trouble until he's found by Diana, a mysterious android girl made from advanced material called Luna Filament that can create anything if you have the right data. Here's the cool twist. You control both of them at the same time. Hugh handles the action with his special suit that has thrusters for movement, and he's your standard action hero. Diana can hack enemy robots to expose their weak spots, and she can also hack the station itself to open new paths and solve environmental puzzles. It's got that buddy team dynamic, but with way more sci-fi mystery. The game's set on the moon, looks atmospheric and interesting, and Capcom built it in the RE engine, so it runs super smooth. There's even a demo available on Steam right now if you want to try it. Standard Edition is $60, Deluxe is $70 with extra costumes and bonuses. It's Capcom's first original new game series in 8 years. Coming to PS5, Xbox Series, PC, and even Switch 2. This could be Capcom's big sci-fi adventure. We'll find out in April. Housemarque, the amazing team behind Returnal, looked at that game and said, what if we made it even more exciting? Satos releases April 30th, 2026, exclusively on PS5. And it's basically Returnal's spiritual successor with tons of improvements. You play as Arjun Devraj, voiced by Rahul Kohli from Midnight Mass, and he's a Soltari enforcer investigating a lost colony on the planet Carcosa that's stuck under this ominous eclipse. The story is about finding someone, uncovering conspiracies, and dealing with nightmarish monsters that look absolutely creepy. Combat is pure Housemarque action. Third-person bullet dodging with intense movement mechanics. But here's the big difference from Returnal. You have a shield. The Soltari shield lets you block attacks and absorb energy from incoming projectiles. Then you can transform that energy and blast it back at enemies. It's aggressive, fast, rewards skillful play, and unlike Returnal, you keep permanent upgrades between runs. You can customize your loadout with over 30 weapons mixing human and alien technology. And there's a second chance feature that revives you on your first defeat, so you get another opportunity. The world changes every run with new paths and secrets. There's a hub area with NPCs including Jane Perry returning as a character. And the whole thing looks visually stunning with that Housemarque polish. Standard Edition is $70, Deluxe is $80 with early access and armor sets inspired by other PlayStation games like Returnal, Ghost of Yotei, and God of War. If Returnal was too challenging for you, Satos might be more accessible while still being excitingly difficult. Neon Giant made The Ascent, that gorgeous cyberpunk game. And now they're back with a first-person shooter that looks like Cyberpunk 2077 meets Deus Ex. No Law is coming in 2026, and you play as Gray Harker, an ex-military veteran who just wants to tend his plants and live peacefully in the cyber-noir city of Port Desire. Obviously, trouble comes knocking, and you have to settle some scores. The game's an open-world immersive sim, which means you can approach missions however you want. Stealth, precision tactics, or action-focused gameplay. Your choices actually matter, affecting how the city and NPCs react to you. You can make big decisions that change how the story unfolds, which is really cool. Port Desire is this vertical city carved into seaside cliffs, full of neon lights, interesting characters, and corporate districts. You've got advanced military upgrades, sci-fi gadgets, parkour movement, and the action is supposed to be spectacular and exciting. The developers are a team of experienced folks from other major studios, so they know how to make shooters feel awesome. They're calling it a cyber-noir story with detective elements. Coming to PS5, Xbox Series, and PC for probably $60 to $70. If you've been waiting for a proper cyberpunk adventure game, this might be exactly what you're looking for. It's more focused and detailed than massive open-world games. Chinese studio S-Game has been working on this for years, and it finally has a date. September 9th, 2026. Phantom Blade Zero is what happens when you mix Devil May Cry combat with Chinese martial arts movies and make it look absolutely gorgeous. You play as Soul, an elite warrior who gets framed for a crime he didn't commit, and now he's got 66 days to clear his name. The whole game is his journey to uncover the truth while being hunted by his former allies. The combat is the star here. Third-person action inspired by classic kung fu movies, with real martial arts techniques captured through motion capture. You've got over 30 weapons to use, including blades with ultimate abilities and special secondary weapons like lances, axes, and hammers. You can learn weapons from bosses after defeating them and master their signature moves. Combat has blocking, parrying, dodging, but some enemy attacks require special timing, forcing you to adapt and learn. There are even cinematic moments in boss fights where you counter attacks in spectacular ways. The game's built in Unreal Engine 5 and looks stunning. They call the style Kung Fu Punk, mixing traditional martial arts with machinery and modern aesthetics. It's got fantasy elements and shifting realities you explore. The story is 20 to 30 hours with another 20 hours of side content. Standard price, probably $70. PS5 console, exclusive for 12 months, then PC. After Black Myth Wukong proved Chinese action games can be huge hits, Phantom Blade Zero is positioned to be the next big success. And honestly, the combat alone looks absolutely amazing. Insomniac Games, the masterminds behind Spider-Man, are making a Wolverine game, and it's coming fall 2026, exclusively on PS5. After years of waiting, we finally got an official gameplay trailer in September, and it looks absolutely amazing. You play as Logan, voiced by Liam McIntyre, and this isn't Spider-Man with claws. This is a more serious, action-packed adventure. The trailer showed Logan on a journey to uncover his mysterious past while using his adamantium claws in combat. The combat looks fast and exciting, built on Insomniac's signature fluid movement, but way more intense. You'll use Berserker Rage to build momentum and those claws to defeat anyone who stands in your way. The story takes Logan to multiple locations including Madripoor, the Canadian wilderness, and Tokyo, all potential settings for epic action. Characters include Mystique, Omega Red, and the Reavers as enemy factions. More gameplay details are coming in spring 2026, probably at a dedicated showcase. Built from the ground up for PS5 and PS5 Pro, it'll have ray tracing, 3D audio, and DualSense haptic feedback, so you feel every action. Standard price probably $70. Industry insiders think it'll launch September or October. After that Spider-Man success, expectations are sky high for Insomniac to nail Logan's darker, more serious style of heroism. And honestly, if anyone can do Wolverine justice, it's this studio. Note, this game is rated for mature audiences. One of the biggest game releases is coming November 19th, 2026. Grand Theft Auto 6 has been delayed a couple times, but Rockstar says this is the final date. The game returns to Vice City, which is based on Miami, with an absolutely massive map to explore. For the first time in the mainline series, you control two protagonists, Jason and Lucia. The game features everything that made GTA 5 popular but improved. Better graphics, more detailed world, smarter AI, and amazing physics. Rockstar is using their Rage engine pushed to the absolute limit, and based on the trailers, it looks photorealistic. Standard edition is $70 on PS5 and Xbox Series XS. No PC version at launch, probably coming 2027. Take-Two's CEO keeps saying they need extra time to deliver incredible quality. When this releases, it'll break entertainment records. Every other publisher is moving their release dates to avoid competing with it. This is one of the most anticipated games ever, and if it actually releases on time, November 2026 will be huge in the gaming world. Important note, Grand Theft. Auto games are rated M for mature and are designed for adult audiences only. Capcom's bringing back Onimusha after 18 years, and Way of the Sword is coming in 2026 for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. This franchise was really popular in the early 2000s with its samurai action-adventure style. You play as Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary swordsman. Set in historical Kyoto mixed with supernatural elements, you wield the Oni Gauntlet, a mystical artifact that gives you special powers against demon enemies. Combat focuses on the Issen system, a timed counterattack that lets you defeat enemies with skillful strikes. Think samurai action, but faster and more arcade style, not impossibly difficult. The developers confirmed they're not making a super hard game. This is classic Onimusha action with modern improvements. You'll explore ancient Kyoto transformed into a fantasy world, engage in sword battles, and use Oni vision to identify all enemies in an area. Energy you collect upgrades your weapons and abilities. The game's largely story-driven with some open areas and side quests, running about 20 hours. Built in Unreal Engine 5, it features gorgeous visuals and that classic adventure-style pacing, but with supernatural enemies instead. The developers partnered with Flying Wild Hog, who made Shadow Warrior, so the action should be top tier. Capcom's been on a hot streak reviving classic franchises. Resident Evil, Devil May Cry, Street Fighter, all doing amazing. Onimusha could be next if they nail the balance between classic gameplay and modern expectations. Estimated price $60 to $70. No exact date yet, but based on hints, early 2026 seems likely. Neki, the studio behind mobile games like Shadow Fight, is making their first console game, and it looks like action movies meet cyberpunk parkour. Spine is coming in 2026 for PS5, Xbox Series, Switch 2, and PC. You play as Redline, a rebellious street artist who gets a special combat implant called Spine that gives her amazing abilities. Set in a futuristic world where the Tensor Corporation controls everything with AI. Redline's searching for her captured brother while fighting the authoritarian regime. The gameplay is pure action. close-quarters combat mixed with martial arts, inspired by action movies. Combat features dynamic camera angles that make you feel like you're in an action film, with choreographed finishing moves using various abilities. You can use simple controls for basic attacks or master combinations for flashy, cinema-quality takedowns. The developers promise varied animations so fights stay fresh and exciting. Bosses require actual strategy, not just button mashing. The game's built in Unreal Engine 5 with custom animation software called Cascadeur that Neki developed themselves. Visually, it's stunning cyberpunk with modern, sleek aesthetics, featuring contrast between utopian areas and gritty alleyways. The story is single-player focused. Neki says it's entering final stages of development with a release date announcement coming soon, probably mid-2026. Price likely $60 to $70. If you loved stylish action games with parkour elements, Spine might be perfect for you. Crystal Dynamics and Flying Wild Hog are remaking the original 1996 Tomb Raider, and Legacy of Atlantis launches in 2026 for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. They're going all in with Unreal Engine 5, modern gameplay, and celebrating Tomb Raider's 30th anniversary. You play as Lara Croft, voiced by Alex Wilton Reagan, hunting for pieces of the Scion, an artifact of incredible power from the lost civilization of Atlantis. The adventure takes you to Peru's jungles, Greece's ancient ruins, Egypt's deserts, and a mysterious Mediterranean island. Classic locations, but now with stunning next-gen visuals, modernized controls, and expanded storytelling. The trailer showed Lara doing swan dives, handstand ledge pull-ups, horizontal bar swinging, all the acrobatic gymnastics from the original, but smoother. That iconic T-Rex encounter is back, redesigned to feel exciting like the first time. The developers say they're balancing modern player expectations with the methodical, puzzle-focused gameplay of 1996. Expect intricate environmental puzzles, dangerous traps, wildlife encounters, and lots of exploration rather than constant combat. Flying Wild Hog made Evil West and Shadow Warrior, so they know action, while Crystal Dynamics brings the Tomb Raider expertise. It's published by Amazon Game Studios as part of their push into AAA gaming. If you link your Amazon Games ID to PlayStation Network, you get a free Mediterranean wetsuit outfit at launch. Standard price probably $70, releasing alongside Tomb Raider, Catalyst in 2027, which is a totally new adventure. Legacy of Atlantis is pure nostalgia for longtime fans and a fresh starting point for new players who never experienced classic Lara. Look, I've been covering games long enough to know that sometimes games get delayed into the next year. That's just part of game development. Developers want to make sure everything's perfect before releasing, and that takes time. But here's the exciting part. Even if some games get delayed, 2026's lineup is genuinely impressive. Chinese studios are showing amazing creativity. Capcom's bringing back franchises we thought were gone forever. Insomniac's making Wolverine for older audiences, which is a new direction for them. Will GTA 6 actually release in November? We'll find out. Will Wolverine get pushed to 2027 because Insomniac wants to make it absolutely perfect? It's possible. Might some of these games need extra polish at launch? Sure, but that's the exciting part of following gaming. We get to experience incredible adventures, and every year brings surprises. And judging by this list, 2026 is shaping up to be really special. If you made it this far, drop a comment telling me which game you're most excited about. I'm personally super hyped for multiple titles on this list. Make sure to subscribe if you want more gaming content and updates, and I'll see you when these awesome games start releasing. Thanks for watching, and get ready for an amazing year of gaming.
Alright gamers, listen closely this time, because what we're about to discuss is huge. Ready? The Last of Us Part 3 might actually be coming. If Part 3 gets announced, will the show also extend? Yes, you heard that right. So sit back, relax, and let your curiosity take over. Because by the end of this video, we're diving deep into one of the biggest debates in gaming history, filled with clues, theories, and hidden messages that might reveal the future of this franchise. Let's begin. The first bombshell comes straight from Neil Druckmann himself. You know, the guy who made us all say, wait, did he just ruin the story or create a masterpiece? Well, Druckmann officially confirmed that a story outline for The Last of Us Part 3 exists. But pay close attention. This does not mean development has started. It simply means they have a narrative idea sitting on the table, something they could build into a full game, if they decide to. Last year, Naughty Dog canceled the Last of Us multiplayer project. Why? Because the studio is now focusing on two major single-player titles. The first one is the long-rumored sci-fi game, Intergalactic, The Heretic Prophet. Yes, they showed a teaser. Yes, people were confused. And yes, everyone said, can we bury this protagonist's face somewhere deep underground? But hey, that's a different discussion. This game is expected to arrive around 2025, 2026, with more details supposedly coming this summer or fall. If Naughty Dog's second project really is The Last of Us Part 3, then let me say this clearly. This would be the studio's biggest, most resource-heavy project. No exaggeration. All the energy, all the talent, all the budget would be poured straight into Part 3. And honestly, it makes sense. Part 2 left us with so many unanswered questions. What will happen to Ellie? Will she go after Dina again? Can she find new purpose after everything she's lost? What about Abby and Lev? Will they ever find the Fireflies? How does their story end? Each of these questions is like a ring that keeps growing. In an interview, Druckmann said, "Sequels need strong, innovative stories to justify their existence." What does that mean? Part 3 might introduce entirely new characters, which also means Ellie's story could be reaching its final chapter. Druckmann even said that if they can't find a powerful narrative for Ellie, they're willing to end her journey right where it is. That's a heavy possibility, but not impossible. We've already been through a long and painful road with her. The HBO show is currently adapting Part 2. It's confirmed to span at least 2 seasons, possibly 3. But here's the big question. If Part 3 gets announced, will the show also extend? Will HBO shape the game's future, or vice versa? It's a low-odds scenario, but if it happens, it would create the closest game series connection in modern storytelling. Exciting and terrifying at the same time. And now the moment everyone has been waiting for. Even if development secretly started today, which is unlikely, we're in for a long wait. Naughty Dog's current priority is Intergalactic. Development started way back in 2020, and they're still hiring for core positions. That means Part 3 is realistically years away. Estimated release window, 2027 or 2028. Painful, but expected. Greatness takes time. And The Last of Us is a series that simply cannot be rushed. So for now, this is everything we know about The Last of Us Part 3. But trust me, I'll keep following every leak, rumor, interview, and tiny breadcrumb that drops. Now, as always, I'm curious about your thoughts. Do you think Part 3 will come sooner than expected? Or are we in for a long, long wait? Let me know in the comments. I seriously want to see what you think. And if you enjoy videos like this, deep dives, theories, breakdowns, don't forget to like the video. And join the Pexel to Legend family by subscribing. More insane content is on the way.
When you look back at Naughty Dog's magnum opus, you remember The Last of Us for the wrong reasons. Don't believe me? I'll prove it. You remember the hospital, the blood on Joel's hands, the lie he told Ellie as they drove away from Salt Lake City. That moment has haunted you for over a decade, and it's supposed to. But here's the thing. While you've been wrestling with whether Joel was a monster or a hero, you've been missing what The Last of Us was actually about all along. Because buried between the infected and the moral debates, there's a giraffe. There's Ellie's joke book. There's Joel teaching her to swim, to shoot, to trust again. These aren't just filler. They're the entire point. The Last of Us isn't a story about one impossible choice at the end. It's about a man and a girl finding something worth protecting in a world that's forgotten how to protect anything at all. So by the end of this video, I'm going to show you why that hospital scene shouldn't be what everyone obsesses over. Because it's not the central message of the game. It's the test. And once you see what Naughty Dog was really building toward, you'll never look at Joel's decision the same way again. Now, let's talk about giraffes. You wake up on a gurney in St. Mary's Hospital and something is immediately terribly wrong. Ellie is gone. The sterile white hallways feel like a tomb, and Marlene, the woman who hired you for this job months ago, tells you matter-of-factly that the girl you've crossed the country with, the girl you've bled for, is being prepped for surgery. They found the cure. The cordyceps mutation in Ellie's brain is the key to saving humanity. There's just one problem. Extracting it will kill her, and she has no idea. Marlene doesn't ask for your blessing. She doesn't negotiate. She tells you to leave, that your services are no longer needed, that this is bigger than both of you. And then the guards escort you out at gunpoint. The game doesn't pause. It doesn't offer you a dialogue wheel. It doesn't ask, what will you do? It simply puts an assault rifle in your hands and says, this is who you are now. This is who you've become. What follows is a massacre. You tear through the fireflies like a force of nature, doctors, soldiers, anyone between you and that operating room. The game that spent 15 hours teaching you to conserve ammo, to stealth past enemies, to survive by any means necessary, now watches as you spend it all. Every bullet, every shiv, every ounce of violence you've accumulated. You find Ellie unconscious on the operating table, and you carry her out like she's the only thing in the world that matters. Because to you, she is. Marlene tries one last time to reason with you in the parking garage, appeals to the greater good, to Ellie's own choice, to what she would want. And you shoot her anyway. Then you drive away. Ellie wakes up confused, asking what happened. And Joel, without hesitation, without a tremor in his voice, lies. They've found dozens of people immune like you, he says. It didn't work. They've stopped looking for a cure. And Ellie, staring at him with those searching eyes, asks him to swear it's true. I swear, he says, and the screen cuts to black. This moment has dominated every conversation about The Last of Us for over a decade, and for good reason. It's a moral Rorschach test, disguised as a video game ending. Was Joel a selfish monster who doomed humanity for his own emotional needs? Or was he a father protecting his daughter from being butchered without consent by a desperate, failing organization? Reddit threads spiral into thousands of comments. YouTube is flooded with "Was Joel right?" video essays with runtime lengths approaching feature films. Philosophy professors use it as a teaching tool for utilitarianism versus deontological ethics. The discourse has become its own ecosystem. People who've never played the game know about Joel's choice because it's become cultural shorthand for impossible moral dilemmas. It subverted every hero narrative we'd been conditioned to expect. The gruff survivor was supposed to learn to care again. Yes, but he was also supposed to make the hard choice and let Ellie sacrifice herself. Instead, Joel rejected the entire premise. He looked at the trolley problem and shot the person asking the question. But here's what haunts me about all this discourse, all these debates, all these passionate arguments about whether Joel was right or wrong. We've been so fixated on the last 20 minutes that we've forgotten the 15 hours that came before it. We've reduced The Last of Us to a thought experiment, a trolley problem with better graphics, when it was never about that final choice. That choice was simply the inevitable conclusion of everything the game had been saying all along. Because while we've been arguing about utilitarianism and bodily autonomy and the needs of the many, we've missed the giraffe. We've missed the joke book. We've missed every quiet moment when a broken man and a scared girl slowly learned to be human again, in a world that had forgotten what humanity looked like. So let me ask you this. What if, while we've been staring at the end, we've been blind to everything that came before it? What if the hospital wasn't the point? It was just the test. The Last of Us doesn't just show you a world ravaged by fungal infection. It shows you a world where the infection was almost merciful compared to what humanity became in its wake. 20 years after Outbreak Day, the cordyceps aren't the only thing that's hollowed people out. In the Boston quarantine zone, Fedra soldiers execute citizens in the streets for minor infractions, while a black market thrives on human desperation. Tess, your partner, operates with the cold calculus of someone who survived by never letting anyone matter too much, and even she knows when her number's up. When she's bitten, there's no melodrama, no drawn-out goodbye. She buys you time to escape, faces down a dozen soldiers, and that's it. She's gone. The game teaches you early. Attachment is a liability, trust is how you die, and hope is a luxury nobody can afford. This is a world where a man named Bill survives alone in a fortified town, stringing up tripwires and traps because the only thing more dangerous than the infected are other people. He loved someone once, Frank, and you find Frank's body upstairs, a suicide note explaining he couldn't live in Bill's prison anymore. Even love, the game whispers, might not be worth it here. Then you meet Henry and Sam, and for a brief moment, you believe the game might offer you something different. Two brothers trying to survive together, just like you and Ellie are learning to. Sam is maybe 13, still young enough to collect action figures and draw in his notebook. Henry is doing everything he can to protect him, making impossible compromises, trusting the wrong people, carrying the weight of choices no brother should have to make. And then Sam gets bitten. He hides it. The infection takes him in the night, and he attacks Ellie before Henry shoots his own brother in the head.
Shit, he's turning! That's my fucking brother! Screw it!
Shit!
Chloe, gotta get you all right.
Oh my god.
Sam?
Oh no.
Sam? Henry? Henry, stay there. Henry? What have you done? I'm gonna get that gun from you, okay? Oh, okay, easy.
It's your fault.
This is nobody's fault, Henry.
It's all your fault.
Henry!
Then Henry puts the gun to his
Henry,
own
no.
temple and pulls the trigger before Joel can say a word. You watch it happen. Ellie watches it happen. And the game asks you to keep moving, to keep surviving, because that's all anyone does here. They survive until they don't. Later, you'll meet David, a man who's turned his community into cannibals, who sees Ellie as both prey and something darker, who proves that civilization didn't just collapse, it inverted. The people who thrive in this world are the ones who've abandoned every principle that made them human in the first place. This isn't just world building, it's programming. Every encounter, every settlement, every corpse with a note in its pocket is asking the same question. In a world like this, what does it mean to be human? What's worth saving? The hunters in Pittsburgh have formed entire communities around murder and robbery. The military state has devolved into authoritarian brutality. The Fireflies, who claim to fight for humanity's future, are willing to carve up a child without her consent and call it noble. Joel himself is introduced as a man who's done worse things to survive, who admits to being on both sides of an ambush, who spent 2 decades building walls so thick that nothing, no person, no hope, no future, can get through. Everyone is surviving, but no one is living. They're going through the motions of existence in a world that's forgotten why existence ever mattered in the first place. The game spends hours showing you this wasteland, this emotional Armageddon, until you're convinced that maybe humanity isn't worth saving, that maybe the cordyceps won after all, just not in the way anyone expected. And then there's a giraffe. You're in Salt Lake City. You're so close to the end you can taste it. The Fireflies are somewhere in this city, and after everything, after Pittsburgh, after the university, after winter, you're finally going to deliver Ellie and complete this impossible journey. The game could rush you there. It should rush you there. Instead, it does something unexpected. It stops. Joel and Ellie are walking through an abandoned neighborhood overgrown with vegetation, and Ellie sees something. She takes off running, and you follow her up a staircase, through a building, until you emerge onto a terrace. And there they are, giraffes. A whole family of them, moving gracefully through the ruins of human civilization, eating leaves from trees that have reclaimed the streets. Ellie doesn't say anything at first. She just stares, and then that smile, that rare, genuine, unguarded smile, spreads across her face. So fucking cool, she whispers. Joel offers to get closer, and suddenly you're not playing as a survivor anymore. You're playing as a father watching his daughter experience wonder for maybe the first time in her life. She reaches out and feeds one. She laughs. And Joel, this man who spent the entire game wearing his trauma like armor, he smiles too. Just a beautiful moment shared between two broken people that says, this still exists. Wonder still exists. And maybe, just maybe that's enough. But here's what makes this scene transcendent. It's not an accident. It's not a one-off detour. It's the culmination of a pattern the game has been weaving since the very beginning. A pattern most players experienced but never consciously registered because they were too focused on surviving to notice they were also living. Go back to Boston, to that early moment when Ellie tries out her first joke from her book. Why did the Scarecrow get an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. Joel groans. Tess smirks. But Ellie keeps going because she's collecting these jokes, these tiny artifacts of a world that used to laugh, and she's determined to make them matter again. Later in the suburbs, she finds a joke book in an abandoned store, and she's ecstatic. Not because it helps you survive, but because it gives her something to hold on to besides fear. Or remember Bill's town, where you can find Polaroids of Bill and Frank, evidence of love that existed even in this hell. Joel barely acknowledges them, but Ellie studies them, trying to understand what connection looks like. Then there's the ranch house, where Ellie discovers an old arcade machine and begs Joel to get it working. And for just a few minutes, she's a kid playing a video game, instead of a immune girl carrying humanity's last hope. Joel watches her play, and something in his face softens. These moments aren't pacing breaks between the violence. They're not filler content to pad out the runtime. They are the game. They're what The Last of Us is actually about. Because here's the truth we missed while debating Joel's choice. The Last of Us isn't about surviving the apocalypse. It's about finding reasons to want to survive it. It's about a father and daughter learning to be human again in a world that punishes humanity at every turn. Every joke Ellie tells is an act of defiance against despair. Every moment Joel lets his guard down is a small miracle. The game could have been a relentless march through horror, and plenty of post-apocalyptic stories are exactly that. But Naughty Dog understood something deeper. Survival without meaning is just slow death. The giraffes matter because they remind Ellie and us that the world still contains things worth protecting. The jokes matter because laughter is how we remember we're alive. The quiet conversations matter because connection is the only thing that makes any of this bearable. When Joel finally teaches Ellie guitar on that porch, a scene we only see in flashbacks later, but one the game has been building toward, it's not a reward for completing the story. It's the point of the story. The hospital scene breaks our hearts because we've spent 15 hours watching two people find each other in the dark. And now the game is asking, what would you sacrifice to keep that light burning? In Boston, Joel won't even say her name. Tess calls her Ellie, but Joel, she's the girl, she's cargo. She's a job, and Joel has spent 20 years making sure jobs don't become people because people get you killed. When Ellie tries to make conversation, he shuts her down. When she asks questions, he gives one-word answers. When she reaches for connection, he builds another wall. This is a man who lost his daughter Sarah on Outbreak Day, who spent 2 decades burying that grief so deep that feeling anything became a threat to his survival. But here's what the game does brilliantly. It doesn't force the relationship. It lets it grow in the margins, in the optional conversations most players almost missed. In Pittsburgh, after you clear out the hunters in the hotel, if you slow down, if you don't immediately rush to the next objective, Ellie will start talking. She'll ask about the buildings, about what life was like before. And if you let her, she'll tell her first joke. People are making apocalypse jokes like there's no tomorrow. Joel groans, but there's the ghost of a smile. By the suburbs, something has shifted. They're bantering now. When Ellie finds that joke book, Joel doesn't shut her down. He tolerates it, even engages with it. Why did the chicken cross the road? To get to the other side. That's it? That's the joke? You're such a grump. And in that moment, she's not cargo anymore. She's a kid who's getting under his skin, and he's letting her. Then comes the University of Eastern Colorado, and everything Joel has been carefully holding together shatters. Ellie suggests they don't need to keep going, that maybe Tommy can take her the rest of the way. And Joel, this man who insisted she was just a job, he refuses. No, I am not leaving you, he says, and you can hear the desperation creeping in. Then the ambush happens. Joel gets impaled on a piece of rebar, and for the first time in the game, he's not the protector. He's dying. Ellie has to get him on the horse. She has to ride through a blizzard. She has to hold him upright while he's bleeding out, whispering, "Don't do this to me, baby," through gritted teeth. Baby, that word. Sarah's word. The wall isn't just cracking anymore, it's gone. And then winter comes, and the game does something revolutionary. It switches perspectives. You are Ellie now. You're hunting rabbits to feed Joel while he's unconscious. You're fighting off infected alone. You're being hunted by David and his cannibals. And when David has you pinned down, calling you weak, saying you need him, you take that machete and you butcher him. Not because the game makes you, but because Ellie has learned from Joel that sometimes survival means becoming the monster. When Joel finally wakes up and finds her in that burning restaurant covered in blood, hacking at David's corpse in pure traumatized fury, he doesn't lecture her. He just holds her. It's okay, baby girl. It's over. I got you. Sarah's words. Sarah's name. Ellie has become his daughter, and he's become her father, and there's no going back. By the time you reach spring, the transformation is complete. They're moving through those suburbs in Salt Lake City, and their dynamic has fundamentally changed. The dialogue is easy now, comfortable. They're talking about things, about Sarah, about the future, about fears and hopes. When they reach that ranch house and Ellie finds that arcade, Joel doesn't rush her. He gets it working because making her smile has become more important than reaching the objective. And then comes the giraffe moment. And after it, on that terrace, Ellie says something that destroys you if you've been paying attention. Back in Boston, I was so scared. You have no idea what that felt like. But walking with you, I don't feel that anymore. Joel offers to turn back, to forget the fireflies entirely, to just go back to Tommy's and build a life. And Ellie says, after all we've been through, everything that I've done, it can't be for nothing. She's asking for purpose. She's asking for her suffering to mean something. And Joel responds, okay. The smallest word that means everything. It means I understand. It means I'll take you there because you're asking me to. It means I'll let you make this choice because I love you enough to respect it. The game rewards players who slowed down, who chose conversation over efficiency, who stopped to let Ellie examine every bookstore and comic shop and music store. Those players got hours of character development that speedrunners never saw. Quiet moments on ledges, conversations while crafting, Ellie humming to herself, Joel teaching her to shoot properly, both of them processing trauma in real time. By the time you reach that hospital, Joel isn't making a trolley problem calculation. He's not weighing the needs of humanity against one girl. He's a father who just got his daughter back after 20 years of grief, and someone is trying to take her away. So let's return to that hospital with everything we now know. Joel wakes up on that gurney, and Marlene tells him Ellie is being prepped for surgery. Surgery that will kill her to extract the cure.
The hell you mean, surgery?
The doctors tell me the cordyceps, the growth inside her, has somehow mutated. It's why she's immune. Once they remove it, they'll be able to reverse engineer a vaccine. A vaccine.
But it grows all over the brain.
It does.
Find someone else.
There is no one else.
Listen, you were gonna show me where.
And here's what we missed in all our moral
Stop.
debates. This isn't the game presenting you with a dilemma. This is the game testing whether you understood what it's been teaching you for the past 15 hours. Because The Last of Us didn't spend all that time showing you Joel and Ellie's relationship so you could weigh it against the abstract concept of humanity's survival. It spent all that time showing you what happens when someone rediscovers their humanity in an inhuman world. What it looks like, what it costs, what it saves, what it means. The hospital isn't asking what's the right choice. It's asking, now that you've seen what connection looks like, now that you've watched a broken man become a father again, now that you've seen Ellie give him a reason to live, what would you sacrifice to keep that? The Last of Us does something radically different. It builds the relationship entirely through experience, not mechanics. You don't get Joel approves notifications when you let Ellie tell jokes. There's no relationship meter tracking your progress. The game doesn't tell you that Joel loves Ellie. It shows you through 1,000 tiny moments that you could easily miss if you weren't paying attention. And then, when you reach the hospital, it doesn't give you a choice at all. It doesn't ask what you would do. It shows you what Joel does, and the question becomes, do you understand why? Have you been paying attention? Because if you have, if you stopped to watch Ellie feed that giraffe, if you listened to her jokes, if you felt Joel's panic when she drowned, if you understood what okay meant on that terrace, then his choice isn't shocking. It's inevitable. It's the only possible conclusion to the story the game has been telling. The game doesn't give you a choice because it's not interested in what you choose. It's interested in whether you understand why Joel chooses what he does. This is the test, not of your morality, but of your comprehension. Did you understand what this game was about? Were you paying attention during the quiet moments? Or were you just moving between combat encounters? Because The Last of Us is pulling off something most games never attempt. It's making you complicit not by giving you control, but by making you witness. You can't choose differently than Joel because you are Joel, and Joel is the sum of every experience you've lived through together. Every time Ellie made him smile, every time he let his guard down, every moment he chose connection over survival instinct. The hospital is proof. Proof that Joel has changed. Proof that love can be selfish and destructive and still be love. Proof that in a world that forgot how to be human, choosing one person over everyone else is both the most human and most monstrous thing you can do. And the genius is that the game doesn't apologize for this. It doesn't give you a good ending alternative. It says, this is what we built together. This is where that father-daughter bond leads. Now live with it. The lie Joel tells in the car, the I swear that ends the game, that's not the moral question. That's the epilogue. The real question was answered the moment you picked up that assault rifle, and if you understood Joel at all, you already knew there was only ever one answer he could give. So let's go back. Back to that terrace in Salt Lake City, where a girl who's never seen a giraffe before reaches out her hand and feels the rough texture of its tongue against her palm. Back to the way her face transforms, not with the hardened survival instinct she's worn like armor since Boston, but with pure, unfiltered wonder. Back to Joel standing beside her, watching her smile, and for the first time in 20 years, allowing himself to feel something other than grief or rage or numbness. This is the moment. Not the hospital, not the lie. This, because what the giraffe scene represents is the answer to the question the entire game has been asking. In a world this broken, this cruel, this determined to strip away everything that makes us human, what's worth protecting? And the answer isn't abstract. It isn't humanity as a concept or the cure as an idea. It's this. It's a girl experiencing joy. It's a father remembering what it feels like to want someone else to be happy. It's the radical, dangerous, beautiful act of loving someone in a world that punishes love at every turn. Go back further. To that first genuine laugh Ellie pulls from Joel, somewhere in the suburbs when one of her terrible jokes finally cracks through his defenses. To the okay on that terrace, the smallest word that carried the weight of Joel's entire transformation. To every moment we've discussed in this video, every joke and quiet conversation, an act of tenderness that we almost missed because we were too focused on the violence. The Last of Us is a game about a man who thought he was dead inside, finding a reason to live. So yes, remember the hospital. Remember the sterile hallways and the assault rifle in your hands, and the way Joel's voice doesn't waver when he lies to Ellie in that car. Remember the moral weight of that choice, the impossible calculus, the devastation of that final "I swear." Remember all of it. But don't only remember that. Remember the jokes. Remember that this game wasn't a trolley problem. It was a love story. It was about two people who had every reason to stay closed off, to stay dead inside, to keep surviving without living, and who chose each other anyway. Remember that in a world determined to make us forget what it means to be human, sometimes wonder is enough. Sometimes a terrible pun is enough. Sometimes a giraffe is enough to remind us that there are still things worth protecting, still reasons to want to see tomorrow, still beauty hiding in the ruins of everything we've lost. The Last of Us asked us to witness that slow resurrection of humanity in Joel and Ellie, and then it asked if we understood what we'd witnessed. So when you think about this game, when you remember why it mattered, don't just remember the blood. Remember why the blood hurt so much in the first place. Remember what was worth killing for. Remember what was worth lying for. Remember the giraffes.
Don't scare it.
I won't. I won't.
What are you doing?
It's all right. Come here. Come here. Hey, fella. Hurry up. Come on. Come on.
Hey there. So fucking cool. Aw, where's it off to? Here, come on, let's go.
Slow down, kiddo.
Come on. Oh, man. Wow. Look at those things.
So, is everything you were hoping for?
It's got its ups and downs, but you can't deny the view, though.
You've made it all the way to the end of the video. Thanks for sticking around. We wouldn't be here without your support. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Quaint old Rimrock is in for a big surprise. These were the words that Meredith Mary Lvov told 400 some students at her high school before she planted a bomb and killed a man in Philip Roth's 1997 novel American Pastoral. Transforming overnight into a national fugitive, Mary's 1968 bombing of the post office was an act of defiance, done in protest of the Vietnam War. The detonation of the bomb was just one of many that would occur in 1968, instigated by revolutionaries in major cities across the nation. Except, quaint old Rimrock was the furthest thing from a major city, and 16-year-old Mary Lvov could hardly be called a revolutionary. At least, according to her father. Seymour Lvov, lovingly nicknamed the Swede due to his thick, blonde hair and bright blue eyes, does more than just refuse to believe that his daughter could be capable of such an act. As the protagonist of the novel, he begs for it, searching for a mistake that he had made, or someone to blame, or even just outright denying that she could have had any involvement with the bombing. After all, the 400-some students that repeated Mary's words to the news weren't her, his stuttering, chubby daughter, the daughter of a successful lineage of Jewish glove makers and Miss New Jersey, the daughter of a passive man. But Mary did enact the bombing. She did mean to blow up the post office at the back of the grocery store. She did mean to kill Fred Conlon. Spurned by the self-immolation of a Buddhist monk in Vietnam in 1963, Mary begins traveling to New York City to join her local chapter of revolutionaries and learn about political activism. She only detonates the bomb in Old Rimrock due to her father's continued pleas for her to engage with her activism closer to home. Mary would go on to kill 3 others in major cities across the country, becoming something of an expert bomb maker in the process. But that isn't important, according to the Swede. What is important is figuring out just where he went wrong. You would just come after her. This is the reason Joel Miller gives to the leader of the revolutionary group, the Fireflies, after he shoots her in the gut in Naughty Dog's 2013 game, The Last of Us. The her in this case is Ellie, a 12-year-old girl who Joel was tasked with transporting across the apocalypse-ravaged American countryside. Joel, our protagonist, shoots the Firefly leader when she attempts to stop him from rescuing Ellie from being put down in an effort to find the cure for this apocalyptic infection. A cure fused to her brain. Joel and Ellie's relationship undergoes a complex evolution throughout the game, beginning as unwelcoming partners and ending as something most akin to father and daughter. Joel is no pacifist, but after the death of his biological daughter at the beginning of the infection, he adopted a passive approach to life that often required him to take things as simply as they came. What he has done before meeting Ellie isn't wholly clear, but we do know that he has been both the victim and the perpetrator of violence, ebbing and flowing with the demands of this kill or be killed world. Meeting Ellie changes this for Joel. At first, it's just a job. He kills for the payment at the end of it. But as their journey continues, it becomes about those who have died, and ultimately for Joel, it becomes about Ellie. At some point, he begins to imagine a future with her, and afterwards where he can teach her how to play guitar, and Joel can sit on the porch and drink a six-pack. The American dream, the American pastoral. The Last of Us is pastoral. From the Latin word pastoralis, meaning relating to a shepherd, The Last of Us is pastoral in the way that Joel guides Ellie throughout the desolated American countryside. It is pastoral in the way that a pastor provides spiritual leadership, advice, and counsel through difficult times. The goal of the characters in both games is a return to a quiet, peaceful life, that the struggle is necessary to achieve a passive existence. But at some point, the struggle has to catch up. There is no leaving behind the things we've done. Something that the novel makes abundantly clear to the reader is that the Swede's passive existence is difficult to maintain. Beloved by his peers, but hated by his daughter and sneered at by his kid brother, the Swede spends the duration of the novel wondering just how others could hold such animosity for his visions of the American mundane. To the Swede, he has achieved everything he has ever wanted, everything his family has ever wanted. He views his daughter's actions like an infection that can be cured for a return to normalcy. To others, his passive attitude was just the inevitable spark that lit the fuse on Mary's bomb. Passivism, loosely synonymous with passiveness or passivity, describes the Swede's ideology to a T. It is the belief in the continuous state of inaction, of non-resistance. The Swede is a man who believes that through his achievements and his inheritance, the titular American pastoral has been achieved, and no further struggle should remain. Ultimately, it is his daughter who brings him back to reality, flushing him out of hiding as if he were a fugitive, initiating the Swede into the displacement of another America entirely. The daughter and the decade blasting to smithereens his particular form of utopian thinking. Eventually, the Swede is informed of where his daughter is hiding. 5 years after he had seen her last, she is a shell of her former self. Impossibly thin and frail, smelling of excrement, Mary tells her father that she is now a Jain, a follower of a dharmic religion that believes in nonviolence above all else. She wears a veil over her mouth to not harm passing microbes. Above her bed are cards with the tenets of Jainism written on them. I renounce all killing of living beings, whether subtle or gross, whether movable or immovable, reads the first, typewritten by the hand of a 21-year-old girl who killed 4 people. Even in pacifism, Mary's conviction is violence. I destroy plant life, she says when her father asks what she eats. I am insufficiently compassionate as yet to refuse to do that. Mary tells the Swede that one day she will become a perfect Jain and die by salekana, self-starvation. But even in the presence of Mary's conviction, the Swede continues to resist the idea of his daughter as a killer. American pastoral predicates itself on the Swede's insistence upon a passive pastoral life. Despite his efforts for normalcy, Mary's violent rebellion pits the Swede's existence against his daughter's sheer determinism. Joel is not the Swede. Within the first 5 minutes of The Last of Us, we know that Joel is not innocent. Instead, Joel echoes the Swede through his desire to shield Ellie from this world. This virtuous shepherding frequently comes in conflict with his own moral pacifism, directly teaching Ellie that this is the way the world is now, and fighting against it isn't just a lesson in futility, it's one that will get you killed. But beyond Joel, Ellie, and their companions in both games, there is another passenger on this ride, another person working out how to engage with the ethics of the series. The player. In American Pastoral, the stories of the Swede and Mary aren't actually real. They're imagined experiences that the narrator, Nathan Zuckerman, creates based on his expectations and idolization of the Swede. Like the player, Zuckerman often gets confused about his own role in the story, sometimes switching from third to first person at random, sometimes even within the same sentence. In The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2, Joel and Ellie have their own beliefs and standards, but ultimately it is up to the player how those beliefs are acted upon. Except when they aren't. Many outcomes in both The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2 are decided for us. These sequences, whether they exist in gameplay mechanics, cutscenes, or difficulty spikes, will either pretend to give you a choice or remove that agency altogether. It is in these moments where the games feel the most real, but it is also in these moments where the player feels the most presence as a companion of the characters. Suddenly, engaging with the story the way that we want, whether that be passively or pacifistly, becomes the most challenging. Because, after all, it's been in the name all along. It's always been about us, not them. The Last of Us does not wait to introduce passivity to the player. At the beginning of the game, you play as Joel's daughter, Sarah, on the day of the outbreak. In a sequence that could be best described as a type of cinematic walking tour, you familiarize yourself with the world that you've woken up into. In one room, a television reporter discusses mass chaos forming in the streets. Simultaneous with the visual in the broadcast, you hear and see an explosion out of a nearby window, demonstrating just how close you are to the end of the world. As you search for your father, the player engages in passive roleplay, examining every item alongside Sarah. And then, in a tense, interactive scene, Joel quickly emerges from the sliding door to the backyard. You and Sarah watch and listen as Joel quickly explains what's happening. Throughout this, we are passive. Even the first infected kill performed by Joel is out of our hands as we watch him shoot someone that was once our neighbor. The continuation of this opening sequence allows for no more agency. We are ushered into a truck owned by Joel's brother Tommy and quickly driven away. The only actions we can perform are to shift from one side of the backseat to the other, to look out the windows, and to decide where we place our focus. In the front seats, Tommy and Joel talk about what's safe, who's alive, and where to go. Out the window, a farmhouse burns down, an ambulance races past, a man begs to be given a ride. The game gives us limited agency, allowing us to potentially miss important dialogue or set pieces as our attention shifts. This flood of information is also why I have never managed to spot the car barreling towards us before it collides, despite knowing it's coming every single time. When the tutorial switches to Joel's perspective, Sarah still feels like the focus. According to the game's co-director, Neil Druckmann, the opening of the game was originally played entirely through Joel's eyes until an aha moment led them to introducing Sarah's perspective. People are just more scared of playing a kid than they are a capable adult, Druckmann states. Having spent so much of the prologue role-playing that kid, the intense focus on Sarah tethers you to her, despite your lack of agency. All you can do is passively follow the flow, leading her to her death. As a whole, The Last of Us and its sequel love these types of experiences. Depending on your strictness for the term walking tour, there are 4 in The Last of Us and 5 in The Last of Us Part 2. Boston, Tommy's Dam, Jackson, and the WLF Stadium are particularly noteworthy, with each containing multiple scenes of NPCs engaging with each other. Here, a soldier lines up civilians and executes one that tries to escape. There, a curious citizen inquires how a chef keeps his knife sharp. You can choose to watch or not, it doesn't really matter. These scenes don't just stand out, they're specifically written differently. According to Druckmann, cinematics are written in a screenplay style, while these gameplay moments are written in prose. This allows for an additional level of leniency when it comes to player input and interaction. Without the strict visual cues of a screenplay format, players can approach or ignore individual scenes and interact with them as they choose. But it also implies that there is a canon pathway laid before us, a true way that Joel engages with the world around him. The prologue of The Last of Us is unique in that it's a flashback. This is a narrative tool that the game's DLC makes plenty use of. Split in half between 2 playable stories, the DLC features a flashback to how Ellie was bitten, as she and her close friend Riley explore an abandoned mall together. While the other portion of the DLC contains traditional game elements, the latter acts as an extended walking tour of the locale with no real danger present. There's a variety of unique scenes throughout this flashback-type story. In one, you and Riley try on various Halloween masks and attempt to scare each other. Another has you strike poses in a photo booth. In my personal favorite, Riley describes actions in a long, powerless fighting game, while Ellie uses the non-functional controls, imagining what it looks like. The camera focuses in on Ellie's face, writhing with various emotions. This type of flashback walking tour pops up in The Last of Us Part 2 as well. Both Ellie and Abby, the game's other playable protagonist and Joel's executioner, receive one of these types of flashbacks. Ellie's takes place in the Wyoming Museum and Abby's in the aquarium. The game allows you to explore these locales, putting hats on dinosaurs or watching seals play. Both sequences are a bit restrained when compared to the frequent gamification of interactions in the DLC Left Behind, but nonetheless, a lot of all 3 of these sequences is considered optional, with much of the flavor left skippable if you simply want to get on with it. Compared to the walking tours set in the present, these flashback sequences offer the player a surprising amount of agency. By engaging with the environment around Ellie, Abby, Joel, and whoever else happens to be with them, you are stepping into the creation of the identity of these characters. Your actions in these flashback sequences literally shape their memories, adding as much or as little as you'd like. In the present, the characters now roleplay the people that you've turned them into. But it's not just flashbacks and walking tours that provide opportunities to engage with the characters in the world around them. Littered throughout the levels are optional dialogue opportunities and scenes. Skipping them won't affect the game's story or outcome, but they flesh out a world and your understanding of the people in it. In one of the most memorable sequences in both games, tucked away in the back of a music shop, you'll find an acoustic guitar. Should you choose to interact with it, you'll be treated to a minigame where Ellie plays the first few chords of the song Future Days, before changing tune and performing a rendition of a-ha's Take On Me. Her knowledge of the song stems from her experiences playing live for others, information that you first learn about during an optional scrounging session at the beginning of the game. You can miss all of this, even the guitar sequence in the music shop, which has featured prominently in much of the promotional material for the game. This is the duality of passivism at work in both The Last of Us and its sequel. These moments both require active interaction and engagement from the player, as well as a nonchalant attitude about the progression of the main plots. If you never take the action to go into the music shop, you'll never hear Take On Me, but urging on the progress of Ellie's revenge mission could hardly be called passive either. Some dialogue, like Ellie reading from her pun books in the first game, something that plays prominently into the DLC and the sequel, sometimes literally requires idling after clearing out a group of enemies. By doing nothing, you're doing something. There are also sequences in both games that offer passive respite as a reward. Specifically, these moments present the player with opportunities to sit at a vantage point and just take everything in. There are 3 of these moments throughout both games. The first occurs in the original and is one of the most highly regarded moments of the series, the giraffe scene. The second takes place in the sequel, occurring at the beginning when you arrive at the lookout station with Dina, Ellie's significant other. The third occurs at the sequel's end when you sit on a tractor with JJ, Dina's newly born child. All 3 of these moments revel in quiet contemplation, but they serve another purpose, to allow you to see just what it's all for. All 3 of these moments will continue as long as the player likes until they press the button to pull away. It's not just a breathtaking reminder of the world that you inhabit, it's a destination and a reprieve for the player that willingly prioritizes their own need for pacifism. You could end the stories here. You could set down the controller, walk away, and the scenes would continue ad infinitum. You have to make the decision to continue. There's a similar moment in the second game after it transitions to Abby's point of view. It's in a flashback with Abby's then boyfriend Owen, who's been helping her work through her fear of heights. After convincing her to climb up the inoperable Seattle Great Wheel, Owen takes the easy way down, jumping into the water below. After he doesn't surface, Abby scans the water desperately, lingering over the edge and looking into the blue. The game wants you to jump. It wants you to push Abby. But you don't have to. Linger too long in the moment, and Abby will do it for you, taking the jump and confronting her fears. Aligned with Naughty Dog's intent to create real characters in real situations, moments like Abby's dive break away from the character-player tether. Abby jumps not just because she has to, but because she wants to, regardless of what the player intends. Obviously, she and Owen end up fine, but this leap of faith had to happen without the player forcing Abby into an agonizing wait. Especially since part of the reason she leaps is to make sure that Owen is okay. So why not make it a cinematic? Why give players input at all? According to Druckmann, cinematics are reserved for emotional turns, where slowing down the action is desired, or as a method of getting a close-up shot of someone's face. Some of the game's most climactic and impactful moments happen in cinematics, but many of them don't. A frequent Naughty Dog adage that you'll hear often in interviews is how the development teams work to translate emotion and connection to the stick, creating a harmony between character and player. Mechanics are exploited for emotional and narrative payoff, necessitating that the player form a connection from themselves to the controller to the characters in the game. But even most video games don't ask you to emotionally cooperate with the characters like The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2 do. When I play most games, I don't see the protagonist as a separate person, just an extension of myself. But in The Last of Us and its sequel, I would often find myself asking, what would Joel, Ellie, and Abby do? The thing is that we know what they would do. In many of the sequences of the games, the characters take the initiative away from the player, like Abby jumping into the water. One of my favorite examples of this happens in the original game's standout level. In this level, you play as Ellie for the first time, alone after Joel is grievously wounded. Ellie runs into David, the apparently benign leader of a local group that reveals itself as consisting of opportunistic cannibals, with David taking Ellie captive in an attempt to win her over. Ellie escapes, eventually being recaptured by David, leading to one of the game's 2 boss fights. Trapped in a steakhouse that's slowly burning to the ground, David hunts for Ellie, forcing you to rely on stealth mechanics and nothing but your knife to take him down. Successfully attack David 3 times, and the game forces you into a cinematic sequence with mandatory quicktime events to keep Ellie alive. These QTEs are easy to perform, but fail to act, and Ellie will die. In these QTEs, you must help Ellie slowly crawl towards the machete that David has been using to hunt you down. But once you reach it, Ellie takes over. The button prompts end, and Ellie swings the machete down, again and again and again and again, continuing to slash at David's corpse until Joel, recently healed, runs in and pulls her off of him. The cinematic continues, Ellie crying in Joel's arms until the dialogue cuts out and the music overtakes us. The camera swivels away from Joel and Ellie to focus on the machete sticking out of David before cutting to black. For the briefest of moments, the game loses its technical control. Cinematics, intentionally reserved for subtlety, are instead used to force the player to step back, handing the reins to Ellie so that she can claim the moments for herself. Though we helped her get to this point, we as the player are always able to step away to set the controller down. Ellie, kidnapped and traumatized, is not. Wresting control from us, she acts out her anger one slash at a time, our collaborative camera lens focusing first on David's blood, splattering her face, and then on the killing thing, personifying our disbelief at what our allies are capable of without us, and the quickness of which they move on, while we remain passive, just another character on this journey. Passivism in The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2 means so much more than the simple act of doing nothing. A lack of action from the player allows us to experience depth and beauty and to give these characters the space they need to grow and confront their trauma. But this is a world where doing nothing will get you killed, and as a companion of Joel, Ellie, and Abby, we have no choice. We must be complicit. There's a moment in the second game where Ellie, hot on the heels of Abby and taking information wherever she can get it, finds herself in confrontation with one of Abby's allies, Nora. Ellie's opportunistic threats lead first to a chase sequence, and then to a dark path in the basement, filled with the very spores of the fungus that caused the game's infection. Ellie, being immune, has already won. Nora is doomed to die here, but her refusal to help Ellie ignites a fire in her not seen in the series since her confrontation with David. Our collaborative camera lens focuses first on Ellie's face, writhing as the rise and fall of her anger makes itself plain. And then the button prompt appears. It's a simple prompt, just a button with no words accompanying it. But unlike the desperate QTEs of our fight with David, no danger befalls Ellie should you ignore it. Unlike the push we can give Abby to face her fears, Ellie won't take that first step. You can wait. Ellie's face will continue to contort as she channels her hatred. Like the beautiful landscape scenes the game rewards you with after moments of difficulty, you can wait as long as you'd like. The button prompt remains. So you press it. Maybe to get it over with, maybe to nudge Ellie on. You press it so you can return to your passive observation. You watch her swing a pipe, see the blood splatter across her clothing. And then the second button prompt appears. This time, it's easier to press. By the third prompt, your inhibition is gone. You are complicit. The screen cuts to black. I have never intentionally attempted a pacifist run. For the uninitiated, a pacifist run is a playthrough of a video game in which you attempt to avoid killing. There are different types with different levels of violence accepted, but ultimately it's a self-imposed limitation that I usually feel hinders my enjoyment of a game. Like many gamers, I like to engage with the systems available to me, and go with what feels best. This rarely includes pacifism, unless it's a mechanic embedded in the game. It's not that I don't appreciate the challenge of a pacifist run. To the contrary, pacifist playthroughs are often a delight to watch, highlighting the ways that players can make use of their skills and of the environments, and bypassing the game's limitations. More so, pacifist runs are ways to fundamentally shake things up. A game beaten countless times might feel new and challenging in interesting ways when you aren't allowed to kill enemies. Personally, I've just never felt like I've beaten a game enough times to warrant this style of self-imposed limitation, and toying with pacifism on a first or second playthrough feels like missing out on what the game is trying to offer. This changed with the impending release of The Last of Us Part 2. Early into 2020, with the game's release on the horizon, I decided to pick up The Last of Us one more time to refresh my memory before jumping into the sequel. My playthrough then was largely like my playthroughs before. I focused on stealth, slowly and methodically eliminating every enemy until each environment was clear of threats. And then I got to the hospital. For those of you who haven't played the game, the hospital is St. Mary's Hospital, a fictional building in Salt Lake City that houses a small group of fireflies. The entire goal of the game has been to find this group to find a way to translate Ellie's immunity into a cure. But of course, not everything ends up as planned. The only way to extract a cure from Ellie is to kill her in the process. And in a moment that has gone on to define the game's impact, Joel attempts to rescue Ellie by turning on the revolutionaries and going on a killing spree. But does he? In my 2020 playthrough, he didn't. Joel slowly worked his way around each and every firefly, hiding or distracting them until he reached the end of a level without having killed a single member of the group. After all, these weren't necessarily the bad guys, they were just in opposition to Joel's goals. Why should they die for what I, as a player, considered a noble mission? Obviously, I didn't want to sacrifice Ellie either, but I believed that by sparing these soldiers and rebels, I could allow them a second chance. Another opportunity to find someone who was immune, more time to find a cure another way. The game even seemed to support my active pacifism. When you reach the end of a section, Joel barricades the door, right before survivors pound on it in an attempt to catch him. Whether these are the people that I left alive, or others that just showed up a second too late, I will never know. I attempted a similar playstyle on a recent playthrough of the original game and its sequel, and it instantly struck me just how hard it is to be a pacifist in these games, but for different reasons. In The Last of Us, any attempt at pure pacifism is snuffed out quickly as the game requires you to kill a number of unnamed goons while it's teaching you the combat mechanics. You can stealth your way to the end of a level, but the doors out of the arena are frequently locked or inaccessible until you kill everyone. This wasn't always the case, but it happened enough times that a murderous backtracking became kind of the norm. In The Last of Us Part 2, rather than locked doors and hard roadblocks, the difficulty is often what would ruin my attempts at pacifism. Level exits usually had a door or obstruction blocking the way that would require pure stealth, meaning that I had to get inventive with leading enemies away from areas. A lot of the time, I would find myself getting past everyone in an area, but a single enemy would walk me into a corner and require me to quickly and silently get rid of him. Sometimes I would chalk this up to my best efforts, but sometimes I would reset to an earlier checkpoint, convinced that I could get it right. One particularly egregious example of this was in the final zone. A wide area filled with enemies leads to a closely guarded choke point that was nearly always occupied by 3 to 4 people. I lost count of how many times I attempted to make it through. Eventually, I gave up and used my shotgun as the key. After spending half an hour on this one section, it felt too easy to complete it this way. Because that's the thing about pacifism in these games, it's hard. I'm not just talking about the unpredictable locked doors of the first game or the moments of desperation in the second. There's a fear that creeps up on you when you can't or won't fight back in a game that almost always requires it. The game may have been made with stealth options in mind, but ultimately the gameplay is designed to force you into conflict. But that's the thing, there's still difficulty in stealth and in pacifism. One particular moment that struck me during my playthrough of Part 2 was a sequence where Abby is rescuing her companion Lev from a war between 2 factions, which both Abby and Lev belong to. Both characters, now the target of both groups, must escape an island while it burns around them. There's one stage of this level that is functionally divided in half, with the faction shooting on either side. In previous playthroughs, I used the ample cover to slowly execute everyone on both sides, taking them out one by one to clear the way. This time, my path was obvious, a strip of tall grass directly between the 2 factions. Using this grass, I was able to crawl from one end of the level to the other, unable to see much of anything besides the path directly in front of me. Instead, I had to rely on my hearing, and suddenly the overly realistic death cries of the NPCs, the sound of bullets thudding as they hit their marks, and the explosions ripping limbs off of bodies. All of these sounds took on new, grotesque significance. It was the first time I'd ever felt nauseous playing a video game. I had a similar experience in the level that followed shortly after. Caught in a burning city with both factions on either side, there was no convenient tall grass to crawl through. Instead, waiting was enough. Over the course of several minutes, every enemy but one was dead, having bombarded each other until no one remained. So what was the point of all of this? Why bother playing as a pacifist when everything about the game begs otherwise? Well, to put it simply, I wanted to save the characters. Not the enemies. I wanted to save Joel, Ellie, and Abby. Taken as a whole, The Last of Us is a game about fatherhood. It is a game that follows a broken man still feeling the loss of his daughter, gradually learning to love again, all while showing a 12-year-old how to survive in this new world. But this is where that unseen companion factors in. This world is one that I am unfamiliar with, even more than Ellie is at the beginning of the game. While I can imagine the challenges offered by the world, I don't know them. Even successive playthroughs don't fix this. My determination to kill everyone or kill no one affects the nature of the world. Is this really what needs to be done? With this lack of context, I command the game's characters to act in a way that satisfies my own moral compass. Often in the first game, I found myself asking, is this really what I want to teach Ellie? That murder is mandatory, that systemic execution is a safe bet in a cruel world? The obvious answer was no. In the second game, I placed myself between Ellie's or Abby's rage and the enemy faction's gunfire, acting as a mediator of sorts to prevent the deterioration of their inhibitions. I wanted the violence to stop. My presence in either game demanded attention, necessitating behaviors that none of the protagonists in either game would willingly always enact. Instead, I was role-playing myself and the parent I could see myself as. One thing that American Pastoral dares not to interrogate is Nathan Zuckerman's role in the fable of Sweet Lvov. An established writer and an authorial stand-in, Zuckerman is a frequent character in Philip Roth's novels, appearing in a total of 9 between 1979 and 2007. Zuckerman lived a relatively full and successful life. He attended a prestigious college, achieved a significant level of fame from his 4 published novels, and enjoyed comfort and wealth from his teens until his death in 2004. But Zuckerman never settled down, never fathered children, and remained disconnected from his family. Instead, what he had was a vivid imagination and a fascination for those who earned his respect. What is clear in American Pastoral is that Zuckerman did not know the Swede. The beginning quarter of the novel is how we came to vaguely know his great secret, Little Darling Mary's bomb. What is less clear is how much of the novel is the product of research and testimonies, and how much is Zuckerman just filling in the blanks. Is the Swede's consistent interrogation of his daughter's actions just Zuckerman's disbelief? Inevitably, we have to wonder, how much of the novel is Zuckerman's own desire to believe in the American Pastoral? What type of father did he want to be? I can never know the full story of The Last of Us. The 4-year gap between the games dwarfs my total time spent with the characters. Like Zuckerman, all I can do is imagine what these characters experienced, their highs and their lows, their struggles and their achievements. Even my time with them in-game is unreliably narrated. How many times did Joel and Ellie die before I got a combat encounter just right? Which of my playthroughs is the true version of their story? Playing as a pacifist, I know almost without a doubt that this is not what these characters would have experienced on their journey. But still, there's that glimmer of hope that it could have been so easy. My experiences with pacifism in St. Mary's Hospital were predicated on knowledge of what lay at the end, but it's only with this information that I could feel closest to Joel. I knew what he was capable of in a way that I couldn't understand during my first playthrough, but even with the knowledge and the desire, I still found myself surprised by Joel's refusal to let me save him. After successfully evading everyone in the hospital, I found myself at a roadblock. I had to kill the doctor. I could wait, I could try to shove past him. I could even shoot him in the leg. He would just get back into position, holding that scalpel, never willing to use it. I lifted my gun. I was complicit. Back in 2019, I didn't know that this doctor would turn out to be Abby's dad. It felt like a cosmic joke that this was the inciting factor that set the events of the sequel in motion. I never wanted to do it. I refused to do it. I just wanted to save Ellie. Abby's revenge always felt hollow, but earned, and Ellie's slaughter of Abby's compatriots continued to kill me as I forced her into pacifism wherever I could, refusing to accept that she could so easily kill without remorse. I wanted it to be a fiction. I wanted it to be 400 students telling the news what had happened. As long as there was a sliver of doubt, I could still save her. There is one other time that I found myself unable to act. At the very ending of The Last of Us Part 2, Ellie resumes her hunt for Abby after barely escaping with Dina and her life. After suffering a major injury, Ellie tracks Abby to a forced labor camp where she has been enslaved while Ellie and Dina lived out a literal American pastoral. Ellie finds Abby tied to a post, left out to starve to death for attempting to escape. She is impossibly thin and frail. Ellie cuts her down, either swept up in the revolt she instigated or simply wanting a fair fight. Joel's bloodied face flashes across the screen. The final fight ensues. I put down the controller. I would not kill Abby. I didn't know then what would happen if I refused to play. With it being my first playthrough, I was unaware of what actions Ellie would take or how the game would react if I refused to fight. The answer to my latter question came quickly. Abby forces me to the ground, turning my knife against me, ending my life. It didn't even seem like something that she had wanted to do. The answer to the former question, however, surprised me. Knowing that refusing to play meant a continuous cycle of death, I didn't have much choice. I fought Abby on that beach under an overcast sky, and I forced her into submission. Ellie holds Abby's head underwater. Joel, strumming his guitar on the porch, flashes across the screen. Ellie lets go. Pacifism and passivism are not easy ideologies to follow. They mean the denial of impulse, of the active struggle and the fights. They almost wholly require an uncompromising take on the world, one that goes against human nature. Games as a medium, almost by definition, require the dismissal of these ideologies. Aside from a few mechanically unique examples, games will ask you to step into the world of the protagonists, empathizing with sometimes morally questionable decisions, or enacting great violence that only in retrospect feels wrong. They request your complicity from the moment you pick up the controller, and only offer a reprieve when you put it back down. But these are your acts that you have committed alongside the characters. Fantasy or not, playing a game means actively existing in that world. Rebuking passivity. But this doesn't mean that there isn't anything to learn from engaging with the world in a different style. Through passivism, you may find things you could only learn by standing still. You can gain an appreciation for the quiet moments around you or celebrate the independence and zeal of another. Through pacifism, you can interrogate the way you interact with the world, experiencing unique forms of problem-solving and emotional empathy that may be missed through pure compliance. Both allow for a disruption of the cycle and the assumed course of action. But, like many ideologies, it is easy to take them to the extreme, existing like the Swede in his inflexible passivity, or Mary with her holy grail of Salekana, thinning out. Instead, we must strive for one of the most difficult ideologies of all, moderation, taking care to protect those around us while attempting to extend that same sanctuary to ourselves, relishing our American pastoral without drifting into complacency. The company of others is not just the lens by which we see the world. It is our place as an active participant and contributor. We must know when to put down the controller, but we must also know when to pick it back up.
"2025 was the year I felt myself slipping. Burnout, bad jobs, emotional crashes. It honestly felt like life was trying to break me. But the strange part, what kept me standing wasn't therapy or luck or just timing. It was the games I played. It's strange how every game found me exactly when my life was falling apart. Or maybe I just project myself into these stories. So buckle in, because today we're going to see how little by little, game by game, I was safe in 2025. So my year started a bit off. I was still working at my old job as a store manager, and every day felt like dragging a dead version of myself. 11, 12-hour shifts, sometimes one day off if I was lucky. I was exhausted in a way that sleep couldn't fix it. It was the kind of exhaustion that buries itself in your bones, that makes your hobbies feel like chores, that turns every free moment into a fog. And that was what happened with gaming. The hobby that I had always been my escape suddenly became something I couldn't touch. I would sit in front of my library for hours, scrolling, picking up a game, putting it down, convincing myself that if I chose the right one, maybe I would feel something again. And every time, just nothing. I ended up not playing at all. It was sad, but not that dramatic. Just this quiet sadness that lingered over everything. Eventually, that pressure, that overworking, the stress, the lack of joy built into a simple realization. If I keep going, I was going to burn out completely. So I did the hardest and most necessary thing of the year. I quit. By the end of January, I wasn't a store management anymore. It was terrifying, but necessary. And around all this mess, I finally started playing Days Gone. At first, honestly, it didn't click. My heart was still full of stress, and I felt disconnected from gaming. But slowly, almost silently, something shifted. There was something comforting in repeating of biking around, cleaning out camps, killing freaks, a kind of quiet, predictable loop that let my mind breathe. Deacon's story wasn't my life, but that feeling of surviving day to day, That hit the same. Waking up with the weight on your shoulders, doing hard things because you have to, moving forward even when you're not okay. The game didn't teach me a lesson with some dramatic cutscene. Instead, the lesson comes from the silence between missions, and it comes to realization that if a job takes all your time and joy, is it worth the paycheck? That question stayed with me. I didn't love Days Gone because it was some big masterpiece. I love it because of where I was, because it helped me realign with what I wanted from my life. Because for the first time in months, I actually enjoyed something. By the time February started, I had finished the game and stepped into a new kind of emptiness, unemployment, free time, and this giant unknown future ahead of me. February was strange. I had an entire month free, partially because of vacation, partially because I had to job hunt. And suddenly I had space to feel everything I had been avoiding. I doubted myself constantly. Did I do the right thing quitting? What if I never find a new job? What happens now? It felt like a void. So of course I pick up a game from my backlog that matched that feeling perfectly. Nier Replicant. I only got ending A, and I still want to go back to that amazing story because even that one ending hit me harder than I expected. The emotional weight of every choice, every quiet moment, every sacrifice. It felt like the game was speaking directly to the version of me who had just jumped into the unknown. Nier didn't just make me think, it made me reflect on a bunch of things in life, such as what are the consequences of my choices? What does it mean to do something for myself even if it hurts? What makes me human when everything feels uncertain? It sounds dramatic, but Nier helped me accepting something real simple. Leaving that job was the right decision. For my health, for my relationships, for the tiny pieces of joy I was trying to recover. By finish ending A, I was left with a void in me, a different one. I needed something to work toward, some sense of direction during all this waiting for job interview answers. So I pick up Mass Effect Andromeda again, a game I had left unfinished for years. And suddenly it made sense. I needed a purpose. The game gave me one. Mass Effect always was a series I love and I have a deep connection to. It felt right to go back to something I love, and that brings me comfort and joy, but also this sense of uncovering the unknown. Exploring a new galaxy, searching for a new home, it mirrored exactly what I was living. I spent the month anxiously waiting for emails, hoping for opportunities, not knowing where I was going to end up. And in the game, Ryder was doing the same, navigating uncertainty, discovering new worlds, pushing forward even when everything felt unstable. Andromeda held me together. It gave me a great every day when my life felt like it had none. It filled the silence that comes with waiting. And then, near the end of February, everything changed. I got a new job. The relief was massive. The weight of not knowing finally lifted. And looking back, I don't think I could have handled February without Nier and Mass Effect. Those games carried the emotional load I couldn't. March felt like a fresh start. I was beginning my new job, and for the first time in the year, I couldn't feel crushed by stress. It was a honeymoon phase. Everything felt light. My days were simple: go to work, come home, eat, relax. And by the end of February, Monster Hunter Wilds had come out. It was the perfect fit for my new routine. The game didn't demand hours from me, even though I ended up pouring a lot of hours into it. I could just come home from work, do a hunt or two, upgrade my gear and go to sleep, feel like I made progress. It slotted into my life like it had been designed for it. It gave me structure at a time where I was rebuilding mine. The beautiful environments, the loops, the monsters, they became part of my new rhythm. March wasn't full of revelations or emotional breakdowns. It was simple, calm, quiet rebuilding. And after 2 very dark months, that felt like a blessing and everything was back in order. Until April arrived. April was the exact opposite. The honeymoon phase ended fast. I realized the new job had lied about key parts of the role, and everything I thought I had escaped came crashing back. The stress returned, the anger, the disappointment, the depression. It felt like I've been tricked, like all the progress I've made since January has been ripped away and stolen from me. It was a low blow and unfair. I had to deal with crazy schedules, work hours that I didn't want to, and in the middle of that breakdown, something unexpected happened. Expedition 33 released. Completely out of nowhere, it became the game of the year for me and many people. The emotional tone of the story, the characters, the morbid beginning, it destroyed me in the best way possible. I connected to that game on a level I wasn't prepared for. Something about its world, its themes, its sadness, it matched exactly what I was going through. It didn't fix my situation, but it gave me strength to keep going. It reminded me that even when things fall apart, stories, games can pull you back together. And that's when, surrounded by all this fog, I wanted to grab a hold of my life and made another important decision. I started planning my YouTube channel, this channel, and the first video came out at the end of April. April hurt, but it also pushed me to create something for myself, to define my life situation, to do things I wanted. Even if it was a brutal month, it was also the key moment for my year, and Expedition 33 was there holding my emotion, relieving feelings and things I hadn't think about in years, but also giving me hope for what comes after. May was rough. I was still in the job I hated, angry, sad, numb, going through the motions every day. It felt disconnected from everything, from myself. And after finishing Expedition 33, I felt a void again. Nothing felt right, nothing clicked. So for the third time in my life, I tried Death Stranding. This time, it clicked. Same journey, that crushing emptiness, that lonely world where you're surrounded by people but still feel completely isolated, that was exactly what I was living. I might have co-workers, responsibilities, but emotionally, I felt like I was walking alone through an empty landscape. But Death Stranding taught me something important. Silence can be healing. Loneliness isn't always a punishment. Sometimes distance gives you clarity. The music carried me through the hardest moments. The deliveries gave me purpose. Sam's quiet strengths became something I held on to. By the end of May, I wasn't fixed, but I was a bit stronger. I was still bittersweet about everything, but I was holding on. Death Stranding made me embrace the melancholy that I was in and move a bit further with it. It was a journey I got deeply attached to and I will forever remember. By the time June came, everything was kind of boiling up. I wasn't very stressed, not until later, but emotionally I wanted to escape. I didn't want another heavy game, I didn't want deep introspections. I wanted comfort. I wanted to run away. I wanted to forget that everything was cracking. I needed a break. So I decided to play The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. Zelda was always kind of a comfort for me and something that I relied to go back to whenever I feel that I need a break from things and forget my own problems. Zelda actually worked. I wasn't really thinking or processing my emotions. I was just drifting away from my problems. I was invested in the world, exploring the islands, enjoying the charm and the dreamlike tone. But the more I played, the more I realized I was doing exactly what Link was doing. Dreaming on an island, avoiding a reality. Trying to stay somewhere soft because waking up hurt. And with that, I did something a bit irresponsible. Since my work situation wasn't stable and guaranteed, and everything there was a complicated mess, I decided to purchase the Switch 2 on release. I had friends come over for the launch and we had an amazing time, laughed, yelling, raging at Mario Kart World. It was pure fun, pure chaos, a break from everything. Exactly what I wanted, but not what I needed. The disappointment with Mario Kart hit me hard afterwards. The game wasn't what I thought in my head to be. It became boring quickly, which made me rethink if I should have bought the console in the first place. And that's when the financial stress arrived, because buying the Switch suddenly felt like a mistake I could not afford. That moment became a turning point. I needed to take control. I needed to break patterns. June wasn't growth, it was a warning and a wake-up call. We briefly now come to July, and this was the lowest emotional point of the year. Everything just broke down. I started missing days of work because I simply couldn't handle being there. I knew I needed a new job again, even if I already had one. July was strange in a very specific way. I wanted to finish Death Stranding 2, but because me and my girlfriend were sharing the same console, we never had the rhythm to properly commit. She was deeply into it, and since she was actually the person who pushed me to play the first one, it just felt right to let her finish first. And since I had a new Switch sitting there, I asked myself, why not finally play Persona? Especially because Expedition 33 had opened the door to JRPGs for me, a genre I never touched seriously until this year, and actually finished one just like I mentioned in a previous video on this channel. So I started playing Persona 5 Royal, and instantly it became everything I needed. Persona 5 Royal became the game I poured myself into, my escape, my therapy, my plan for a better life. And unintentionally, it became the build-up to the biggest turning point of my year. The rebellion, the fighting for freedom, the desire to escape toxic environments, it all mirrored my life. Every palace, every decision, every moment with the Phantom Thieves remind me you're allowed to take your life back, you're allowed to break out, you're allowed to want more. Persona 5 became my anchor, my escape, my motivation to change. And so I did. Powered with all this motivation, I started looking for new jobs and planned my leave from this palace known as my current job. August and September were the months I rebuilt myself. I found a new job, a good one this time. No night shifts, no lies, just stability. I left the toxic company behind with joy. I leveled up to 30, a major milestone and realization I'm getting older now. And all this time I kept playing Persona 5 Royal. It marked my summer. I avoided this game for years and it came to me when I needed the most. One moment stands out for me though. My last day at the toxic job, saying goodbye to my friends there and realizing generally that I felt fulfilled. Why? Because Persona taught me something incredibly simple. Life is about relationships you build, about increasing your confidence, about small meaningful bonds. It made me appreciate the little things, conversation, routines, hangouts, kindness, all the tiny moments that makes life feel whole. By the end of September, something unexpected happened because I had played skate for a bit and because Persona taught me to pursue these simple joys in life, I decided to fulfill a childhood dream and learn how to skate. That alone shows how different I was compared to January and the growth I had since then. It was a great and fundamental turning point in my year. These months were the opposite of the rest of the year. Not perfect, not dramatic, just stable. I was finally able to play games for fun again. No pressure, no emotional baggage, just joy. I played Pokemon Legends EA and Legend of Zelda Age of Imprisonment, and while they weren't groundbreaking or life-changing like earlier games this year, they were exactly what I needed. Relaxing, entertaining, comforting. I wasn't surviving anymore, I was living. Even now playing 80s 2, a game I would have burned out on earlier months, felt refreshing. I wasn't forcing myself, I wasn't running, I was just enjoying games again. I would go to bed telling myself, okay, just one more run in 80s 2 and then I will sleep. Well, we all know how that goes. After such an intense year, playing something light felt like breathing again. That I had finally got what I started the year asking for. A stable schedule and time to enjoy what I love the most in life. December isn't over as I'm writing this, but right now the plan is simple. Finish what 2025 didn't let me finish. At the moment, I'm finally playing Metroid Prime 4 and having mixed feelings about it. I still want to finally finish Death Stranding 2, the game I keep putting on pause because life keeps demanding all my time and energy. It feels symbolic to end the year by finishing the sequel to the game that saved me in May. But December is also the place where all the games I love but didn't quite fit into the bigger emotional arcs finally get their credit. Games like Little Nightmares, which was such a surprise, unsettling, imaginative, beautiful in the most twisted way. It was the perfect palate cleanser between all the intense emotional journeys I've been taking all year. Or Chronos, horror game I didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did. Atmospheric, unsettling, and the kind of fear that sticks under your skin. And my other disappointment of the year, Assassin's Creed Shadows, who I don't even know if I will finish, sadly. They didn't mark my year, but did help me out a bit and filled some voids and stress I was in at the time I played them. And then there's the backlog I'm carrying out to the next year, Ghost of Yotei, Silent Hill F, and Split Fiction. The last one being especially complicated because I'm actually playing it with my girlfriend. We started strong, love it, and then just couldn't sync our schedules again. Our willpower is there, but our real life timing has not been cooperating. Maybe they will fit into the next year's video? Who knows? But before I close this year out, I want to say something important. I've talked a lot in this video about how games help me deal with emotional pain. And they did. They were a foundation, a constant, something I've always relied on. But I don't want to sound like games magically fix everything. They didn't. People did. My girlfriend especially was the pillar that helped me through all of this. She was there on the worst days, she pushed me, supported me, reminded me I wasn't alone. And she was the one who recommended me quite a few of the games that I end up playing and helped me the most throughout the year. And the truth is, no matter how powerful or healing games can be, they don't replace the people we love. If there's one thing Persona really taught me this year, it's this. Friends and loved ones matter. They show up, they help you heal, they stay even when things get ugly. And those relationships, the real ones, needed to be cared for, or they disappear. In a year as chaotic and heavy as mine, the people who were there from the beginning to end made just as much of a difference as the games did. 2025 didn't give me peace easily, it didn't give me stability for free. But every game I played, every world, every story, every character carried me through a different part of the year. They helped me survive burnout, unemployment, anxiety, betrayal, depression, financial stress, and emotional exhaustion. They helped me rebuild, they helped me reflect, they helped me grow. And that's what this video is. Not a list of games, not a review of the year. It's the story of how gaming held me together when everything else was falling apart. And how piece by piece, month by month, I found my way back into myself. Thanks everybody for sticking around, and if you want to see why I couldn't finish a JRPG, watch this video right here, the one where I talk about how JRPGs burned me out. Thank you everybody for being here, see you on the next one.